Silver, our resident knight in shining armor, Disney princess, and a space case, who will be celebrating a birthday very, very soon. So, as is the new tradition, to celebrate, I'll be making a rosette backing for this lovely pin I picked up abroad, which is, of course, not a birthday pin, but we make do with what we have. For palette, we're going traditional Diasomnia with a hint of silver to tie back to this lovely little fellow. And as much as I like the original Halloween design, I had no idea how to properly proportion the colors, and I really, really wanted to use this ribbed green ribbon because it reminds me of dragon scales. So, since Silver is totally 100% the first Diasomnia member to show up after I started this series, we're going with Diasomnia here. Now, Silver himself is a sophomore at NRC, and the in game album describes him as a cool and collected boy who guards Malleus like a knight. He is so low key that his calm demeanor often crosses over into a state of visible drowsiness. His best subject is physical training. He's a member of the equestrian club. He loves a good mushroom risotto, and he's not the biggest fan of Lilia's cooking, which is understandable. On the surface, Silver doesn't seem all that complex, especially when compared to some other characters, and I think it's a bit unfortunate. His ability to see the good in others no matter the circumstances is a wonderful quality for him to have, and a good contrast to many of the NRC characters. But since he's so calm about everything, he can come across as way more naive than he is. At times, it doesn't feel like Silver even has an opinion of his own since he goes with the flow so often. Various characters take advantage of his good nature as well for their own means, and while this is usually not super malicious, like with Leona just wanting to be left alone, it can come at the cost of Silver's own identity. If he bends to the wind every single time, it can be hard to see or figure out what he actually stands for. These factors get compounded by how his character is used during Book 7. Sure, we get some nice moments up front in Lilia's dream, but for the other 90% of the book, Silver's essentially reduced to a courier service, and that doesn't help develop his character very much. Book 7 has a bit of a pandering problem, which affects all of Diasomnia's cast, but in my opinion, Silver gets it the worst because of how passive his character seems to be. There are moments through event stories and vignettes where Silver is a bit more forceful and stands up for his ideals or his fellows, vanquishing the foes that stand in their way. However, it seems like more often there are moments where he's content to go along with the group or trust the words of individuals over their actions. In Book 7, Silver is challenged in Lilia's dream where he has to come to terms with his own past, and this moment felt like a pivotal choice, one Silver had to make for himself, and I thought the resolve he gained here would have more of an impact throughout the rest of that storybook. Technically speaking, it is what fuels him to fight with Malleus at the end of the book, and technically it keeps him afloat during the dream hopping too. And I never was expecting a dramatic overhaul of Silver's character because of this realization. However, I did think more was going to come from it. It's really sad to me that I can remember more of Ortho's contributions in Book 7 than either Silver or Sebek. But critiquing the whole book is going to take way longer than this rosette, and not all of my thoughts on the matter revolve around Silver specifically. So to stay on topic, we should talk about his nuances and his good qualities. Because while he does seem a little boring and a little nondescript, there's actually a decent amount of his character that's very well written and is very inspiring. But to explain these things, I need to use Glorious Masquerade as my example, because this is the event where Silver stopped being a pushover in my mind, or at least not as much of one, because we get to see him taking action in a very real way during this event's story. Up until reading this story, the serious side of Silver was unknown to me, and I had written him off as being overly soft, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but it can lead to a character losing their identity. In this event, though, there are high stakes, stakes that require you to pick a side. And while Silver can empathize with Rollo, he knows what Rollo is doing is wrong and is against it. His comment about why would Rollo be doing this is Silver trying to find reason within the chaos, not excuse it, and the actions he then takes to protect his lord solidify this point. Unfortunately, Silver is also subjected to Sebek's rebuke, and this bit of dialogue can be misinterpreted against Silver's character because it almost comes across as Sebek slapping some sense into the boy when it's actually just Sebek redirecting the conversation to action items instead of hypotheticals. But Silver is there if you wish to see him. You just have to tune out the crocodile a little bit. It can be hard to see, but at the end of the day, Silver isn't someone who will hem and haw over what was or could be indefinitely, and his considerations of these other perspectives isn't to provide an excuse not to take action. Not at all. Silver seeks to understand so that the potential for peace can remain. If there is a way for him to see from your perspective, then he can perhaps persuade you towards a mutually benefiting action. If he can't, or the other person refuses to see that reason, then the blade must be drawn. But Silver will know that he did everything he possibly could have to prevent that conflict, and therefore he can now fight with a clear conscience to protect and uphold the truth or the peace or what have you that he values. This moment in Glorious Masquerade shows how Silver thinks with a hint of the whys behind those thoughts, and it truly sets him apart from the rest of the cast who, by and large, do not care about things outside of themselves. Even though taking these moments to step back and look at the bigger picture, look at other people's motivations, can seem like Silver being impassive, I actually think he's much more analytical and divisive than he gets credit for. Making a snap judgment can open up a whole can of worms, particularly if you misunderstood the situation. Taking a moment to ensure you know what's going on can resolve conflicts a lot more quickly and easily. Just because Silver takes a softer approach and thinks a bit more before acting does not mean he's willing to accept any outcome. But he can still be a bit naive, as we see earlier in Glorious Masquerade, where he bails Ruggie out of a lecture with Rollo. While Ruggie's statements have an innuendo of him stealing the coins from the hat, what Ruggie actually says leaves enough room for Silver's interpretation to immediately diffuse the conflict after Rollo steps in to confront Ruggie. Whether Silver knew better or not is unknown, and there is a chance he just took Ruggie at face value and reiterated the story as a way to clear up what he thought was a misunderstanding. But even if that was the case, Silver is still able to quickly and elegantly diffuse the tension. It also allows Ruggie the opportunity to confess his true motivations, which would then give Silver more information to make a better informed decision on how to proceed. I can almost guarantee that if Ruggie was like, "Oh, LOL, nope, I wanted the money for myself," Silver would have rebuked him, as he does with Deuce during Deuce's star-sending vignette. Deuce is very forthcoming with his past, and Silver is equally forthcoming with his opinions on violence. It's almost like there is an expectation of honesty with Silver because that's how he operates. I imagine he's not so naive as to believe that people don't lie, but he gives them the opportunity to come clean before passing judgment on them, and I think this is an extremely good quality to have. It's these sorts of subtle qualities that Silver has that I've started to appreciate more as I've gotten to know his character better. Whether my interpretation is correct or not is another thing entirely, but I think that these sorts of discussions can at least give Silver a better structure. He's not just going with the flow, he's trying to find the current, and if necessary, swim against it, all the while encouraging others to find the right path as well. Silver is also generically a breath of fresh air at NRC because he's counter to the culture, yet isn't overbearing in that. Sure, Kaleem is also hero coded, but he's very pushy and willfully oblivious, causing friction even if he doesn't mean to. Sure, Rook is another hero coded character, but he's also much more willing to dip his toes into more dubious actions, same as many other NRC kids. Silver, on the other hand, feels a bit more virtuous than both because of his contemplative nature. He's much easier to talk to and therefore reason with since he will entertain your thoughts. And if it doesn't make sense, he's gonna question it. And hopefully, as a result, the two of you will be able to come to some sort of understanding. To me, this is a huge boon and puts him above folks like Kaleem in some contexts. Silver also is very chivalrous, holding himself accountable, valuing honesty, and helping those in need no matter who they are. You could be a deuce or you could be a bird. Doesn't really matter. If you need help and you aren't his enemy, he's going to help you. Silver also feels wildly unjudgmental to me, and it may come from that aspect of his character that tries to empathize with folks. But either way, it's another boon in my book. Also, his ability to own up to his mistakes and tell the truth even when it's hard, like in the second Fairy Gala, 10,000 points in his favor. That sort of stuff is incredibly hard to do, and to have the faith in another person that they will understand or be reasonable enough or mature enough for that conversation is admirable. Being able to have those types of tough conversations is rather mature as well, but it's also something I can easily see Lilia instilling in Silver when he was growing up. No matter how he got there, Silver is in a good place. He has good morals, is a wonderful supporter, a great protector, and many other things. I just wish I had a better handle on his character to be able to appreciate him more. But even with my understanding as it is now, it's enough for me to still admire him. Overall, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned from Silver is that you can be soft while still being strong, as long as you figure out how to balance those aspects. You may end up being perceived as naive or a pushover by others, but their perceptions of you do not create who you are. They can still be useful, though, in figuring out where you may need to improve, so they shouldn't be ignored entirely, but you don't have to take them at face value. It can be difficult to balance all the different aspects of yourself, to reconcile your desires with your reality, and your perspective with others, but all of it is worth doing because the end result could be peace. The type and scale of said peace is up to you, but no matter how big or small, it's worth fighting for, isn't it? So happy birthday to you, Silver, and a hearty thanks to all of you for listening to my little ramblings on this lovely little peacekeeper. Please let me know your thoughts on this Rosette design, Silver, this video series, or whatever else comes to mind down below. If you like this type of content and want to see more like it, please let me know that as well. But if comments aren't your thing, you could always like and subscribe instead. Naturally, though, before you go, I must remind you that you're amazing, and I hope you have a wonderful day.